Lisbon, it's over. It's done. Just want you to know I'm okay. And I'm gonna miss you.
I don't know where Jane is, and frankly, I don't care.
No? Well, you two were so close.
It was a long time ago.
It's a show about someone with a tragic past who is nevertheless positive and almost joyful in his search for meaning in his life.
It was a procedural show that was slightly having a wink at itself. It was a little bit of an inside joke at procedural shows.
Pretentious level, it's a search for faith and a search for meaning and a search for redemption and revenge.
We've never discussed this because I thought it went without saying, but when I catch Red John, I'm going to cut him open and watch him die slowly, like he did with my wife and child. Bruno's script was tightly written, but it allowed room for interpretation of the character.
Were you clairvoyant or something, Gizmo? You got psychic powers?
No powers. There was great situations and circumstances and an interesting backstory that could be broadened and expanded and pulled into a heavier, weightier situation. Had him once. I mean, I pretended I had him, obviously. No such thing as psychic powers.
So what is it you do exactly?
The whole series is essentially triggered by this serial killer, Red John, who killed Patrick Jane's family.
Your wife, Red John, painted her toenails. Yes, painted them with her own blood.
Finding Red John is this drive that keeps him going and keeps him coming back to work for our team.
When we catch Red John, we are going to take him into custody, and he's going to be tried in a court of law.
Not if I'm still breathing.
And that's the kind of dark anchor of the show. But the show itself is not dark. The show itself, on the contrary, is all about coming out of darkness and being able to deal with darkness in a light way. It's an illuminating show in that sense.
I think people really do enjoy watching a formula that they're familiar with. So the procedural form fits into that nicely, but it subverts it enough to give it a human side, and that's really where I felt the life and the legs of the show were.
What was his previous employment?
He was a musician, jazz guitarist.
Yes. How did you know that?
I looked at his fingers, guitarist fingers.
Yes?
He was playing a gig at one of these ghastly events you have to go to, and you struck up a conversation. You love jazz, so you could talk with him easily.
I'm sorry, Miss Kate. He's just showing off.
I started thinking about the elements of this show based on a couple of things, really. First thing, driving around LA, where I live, on every block, in every part of the city, you'll see a storefront with a psychic in it, or a fortune teller, or some variation on that particular trade. And it just seemed to me this is a huge underground world that clearly a lot of people are making a lot of money from. A lot of people are going to these people for solace and advice and counsel.
Do you charge for your services?
Yes.
How much did you charge Rosemary?
$500 per hour.
How many hours a week?
5 to 6.
Oh, $3,000 a week. Nice.
Rosemary was a troubled soul.
They know they're doing a trick.
Don't try to cold read me.
Oh, I wouldn't know how.
We both know that's a lie.
But on the other hand, they're doing something good. They're giving people consolation and some sense of closure and redemption.
The veil will be drawn back and Rosemary will come to us as long as we believe.
And that just seemed like an interesting, morally ambivalent situation to be in, and it's a great character for a hero.
Have you spoken to Rosemary yet?
Yes, I have.
Did she happen to mention who killed her?
No.
So it starts out with a person who's essentially a charlatan. How do you turn a charlatan into a hero?
He says, "I'm sorry for all the pain I caused you and your mother. They're tears of joy."
Something has to happen that makes him see the error of his ways.
Dear Mr. Jane, I do not like to be slandered in the media, especially by a dirty, money-grubbing fraud. I think the character is anchored, or is sort of keeled by somewhat of a tragic story. And
in this case, the death of his family.
So I felt that the interesting thing about tragedy is the contrast of how people live with it. I'm sorry about your mom.
Me too. I just want her back.
She can't come back, you know that, don't you? I think great humor comes out of great tragedy.
It's his commitment to dealing with the world with grace and lightness when the circumstances that he's been through would entitle him to be bitter and twisted and sad.
You any good with this, son?
I'm okay.
What's the Charlie Chaplin song that he wrote? Smile.
Smile and the world smiles with you.
Smile though your heart is breaking.
I got you!
Please, mercy, mercy. The way he goes about it varies and shifts. He's not necessarily an angry man that wants revenge, although he's deeply pained and deeply troubled, and he has a lightness and a brevity about him that can be deceptive.
People associate beyond the grave with a certain amount of grim seriousness, because it's a serious thing, death. But the whole kind of priestly gravitas is just a show. And so a character like Patrick Jane, who can treat death with the disdain that it deserves, is a very attractive character, I think.
So it was very important for me to have that balance, and that was a big part of forming the character.
Finding somebody who embodied all the qualities of that character and could sort of shoulder the weight of the show, I thought was really difficult.
The trick with heroic leads like Patrick is that you need to show just enough to create that vision of a real person and then leave it at that, because you need the mystery.
The more vague you are about the depth and the darkness of the character, the more longevity the character has.
Until he resolves that issue, it's very hard for him to be close to other people.
You looked kind of lonely. My friend and I were wondering if you'd like to join us.
Hi. I'm sorry, I'm married.
Well, because that involves a certain degree of forgetting and relinquishing the past, and he can't do that until he's done what he needs to do.
They do think Jane is darker than we suspect. But he hides it well.
I have a daughter, B, about your age, if I hadn't caused her death.
Yeah.
Out of arrogance, stupidity. I made an evil man very angry, and he killed them to teach me a lesson.
And I think that's part of the journey of Jane.
And has the potential to be able to lie and carry that off in a sort of a truthful way and use that to get the truth or to open people up or to disarm people.
He's always gonna try and get your goat and push your buttons.
I know what you're thinking. You're thinking my fiancée is a lot younger than me. I'll let you in a little secret. I was her college professor. Seduced her.
Okay, that's what I mean. Come on, stop it. I think that's part of his game. He enjoys that.
Your father's a football coach, yeah?
How do you know that?
It's obvious from your whole demeanor.
He's a kind of trickster hero. If you were talking about it in terms of, you know, the mythical archetypes, he's a Brer Rabbit type of hero, not a Thor, the god of thunder type of hero.
I drew a lot from the idea of my character was a fake psychic, so he was fraudulent. In essence, a con man. So I love con characters. I love the idea of a grift, pulling the wool over someone's eyes.
And I think Simon plays that to the full. You know, he has a charm and a playfulness in himself that feeds the vocabulary of that character.
I spent a lot of time on YouTube looking at mentalism.
What are you doing?
Grace is mentally telling me where she hid the van keys and getting a bit of a feel of not necessarily the tricks that they were doing, but more the way in which they presented the tricks. If I find them, I get to drive.
And quite often you've seen Jane using physical vocabulary to take your eye off what is actually going on.
Tell me with your mind only. A psychic is someone that has powers. A mentalist has honed, trained skills.
So now you're psychic.
Oh, no. This is all science. Anyone has the potential and the capacity to be a mentalist if they put their mind to it and study. It's more about observation and awareness and approaching things from a different perspective. He's got shotgun.
I think there's a lot of the showman about Patrick Jane, and I think it feeds into his previous life.
One of the challenges with making this show is that as Simon has become something of a mentalist himself, you know, you can't lie to him, you can't pull the wool over his eyes.
When you're in the middle of it on series television, it's coming at you at such a rate that unconsciously you do absorb certain elements of the character into your psyche.
He already was sharp and good at getting to the nub of things, but now, oof, he's scary.
That fire was a tragic accident, and you have no proof otherwise.
Oh, someone out there doesn't need proof. Someone out there needs revenge. That's why he's terrified and shooting at cops. Well, you should be terrified. I hope you burn like a candle, you miserable son of a bitch.
So it can be a little unnerving, but I think it makes an interesting dramatic tension as well.
Now I have access to all your innermost thoughts.
I am right.
I'm serious.
But I don't think that Teresa believes he can read inside her mind. You know, they have a dance about it every now and again, but I don't think it's something that concerns her. I think she thinks it's sort of bubkiss. So what am I thinking right now?
You're thinking I'm so glad Jane is joking around that he can't actually read my mind.
No. Well, actually, yes, but not for the reason you think.
What reason do I think?
Never you mind.
My character works in a procedural world as an unprocedural character. He also works in a world where the thought processes are learned through the hierarchy of the police system.
Sometimes when I'm addressing him as, you know, he's like the naughty 3-year-old and he's driving me crazy. And then other times it's sort of with your child, but a more affection, like he's the precocious child who's your favorite. And then at other times he's a peer who I sort of count on and I you know, think he's bright. And I think other times, you know, my character is sort of flirtatious with him.
It shifts around between those 3 phases and the object, I believe, is to keep moving around like that so that neither one of us ever really gets comfortable with the other person, so that there is always an element of surprise.
I think Teresa likes going to the CBI a lot more than she did before Patrick Jane got there. And I think she does her hair for a longer amount of time in the morning, and maybe even bought a new pair of boots.
The straighter we play the procedural stuff, the more it subverts Jane's process.
What are you doing with it?
Listening to music.
That's evidence. You can't play with that.
Evidence of what? That she likes music?
It's in the log as physical evidence. It's evidence.
What's with her?
Seriously, if it's in the log, it's in the log. You can't touch it.
Really? All right. Well, I'm sorry. I didn't realize it was a sacred thing. I'll put it right back.
You know, I think the whole dynamic of the show relies on us being very, you know, being extremely cop-like to be able to be subverted by him.
Why is Sophie Miller so important to you?
She was my psychiatrist.
But you hate psychiatrists.
She was a good psychiatrist.
She must have been if she managed to keep you in the room.
It was a locked room.
It's a show about someone with a tragic past who is nevertheless positive and almost joyful in his search for meaning in his life.
Hey, can you believe he fell for that old cell phone gag?
Old cell phone gag? I invented that right there and then. Rather brilliantly, I thought.
Oh, please. I've seen that done a dozen times.
What do you mean, where?
On TV.
Oh, on TV. Well, anything can happen on TV.
The question is, where have you seen that done in real life?